With Fyre Festival being one of the most iconic, devastating festival stories pretty much of all time, both Netflix and Hulu both did a documentary on it. And I finally last night just finished up both of them. So I've been asked like, hey Mark, what do you think of the documentaries? Like, should I only see one? Which one is better? Are there any differences? Are there any similarities? So on and so forth. Now, before I get into that, I just want to give a brief definition in case you've never heard of Fyre Festival or any of this stuff. So essentially, Fyre Festival was a festival that was supposed to be the super luxurious festival, kind of competing against Coachella and all the other big ones. This was something that was taking place on like a private island, super tropical paradise. Some tickets cost literally thousands of dollars, if not hundreds of thousands of dollars. And that was just the ticket itself. There was a whole controversy with it. And basically, very long story short, it was basically kind of like a scam. The whole thing fell through. They were promoting that they were going to have some of the biggest artists there. They would have these super luxurious like villas and all these influencers and supermodels and all this kind of stuff. And when people got there, basically, there was none of that. It was basically, like I said, for lack of a better word, a scam. And it was one of the biggest things ever in the music industry in terms of festivals because it got pushed up through all these influencers and social media and marketing. And the marketing behind it was really smart, you know, even though it turned out horrible, it was really smart marketing the way they went about it. However, obviously, it just didn't deliver. So as a result, obviously, this is constant mid waves. I even remember seeing all the reports about how, Fyre Festival is supposed to happen this weekend, and then all the reports about how people had no food, or they had these cheese sandwiches, and how they were sleeping in disaster tents, they were all soaking wet, all this kind of stuff. So anyway, moving on to the documentaries, in case you're curious. So obviously, both Netflix and Hulu made a documentary about Fyre Festival, about what happened, the good parts, the bad parts, you know, just the main storyline behind it. And I will say, first off, that the documentaries, although they're obviously inevitably similar, because they're both about Fyre Festival, they are very different. So in a good way, I will say that if you're like, oh, well, I've seen one, but I haven't seen the other, definitely watch both of them, because I feel like they definitely both highlight different aspects of the festival. Now, the main two people behind Fyre Festival was Billy McFarland and Ja Rule. And what's interesting is on Hulu's documentary, they actually had Billy there speaking. So Billy was kind of the main mastermind behind it. Ja Rule was someone kind of supporting him and whatnot, but Billy was like the main person behind it. Netflix did not have him on their documentary. Like, they talked about him, obviously, not video clips of them, but they didn't actually interview him, you know, this kind of interview style, as opposed to Hulu, which they actually did get him on. So that was really interesting to see. Now, you may be asking, like, okay, you know, what is the main difference, though? Like, you say that there's kind of some differences. They're a little bit similar, but a little bit differences. What's the biggest, you know, difference between them? And for me, what I found is that the Hulu documentary focused more on Billy McFarland and his life that inevitably touched upon Fyre Festival, as opposed to focusing on Fyre Festival itself. I know that sounds weird, but what I mean is that they really talk about his upbringings, his prior companies, you know, things like Magnesis and, you know, that premium card that he invented, that whole company, how it turned into Fyre in terms of this booking app, then how it went from the booking app to the festival and blah. So it was almost more, I felt like, of a biography of Billy McFarland, and inevitably then obviously touched upon Fyre Festival. I felt like that Netflix more focused on Fyre Festival itself, of the upbringings of Fyre Festival, that inevitably hit Billy McFarland, if that makes sense. So I felt like Hulu was focused more on the trees in terms of the very specific, like, here's Billy, here's what happened, oh, now we're going to talk about Fyre Festival, as opposed to Netflix, which said, okay, we're going to talk about Fyre Festival, but obviously, inevitably, we have to talk about Billy, right? Because he's the main person behind it, all this kind of stuff he did, all the scams, all the wire, you know, frauds that he did, you know, inflating numbers. I mean, there's a whole gigantic thing behind the story. But overall, I will say that both documentaries are amazing. I have been asked, like, okay, which one is better? Which one do you think is better? And I actually don't think one is better than another, to be honest. I'm not just saying that to be, like, you know, optimistic or whatever. I'm saying that because I feel like that both are just very different. Even though they're both about Fyre Festival, like I said, I felt like that the Hulu one wasn't really a documentary about Fyre Festival. It more felt like a documentary about Billy McFarland, when the Netflix one felt like more of an actual direct documentary of Fyre Festival. But I will say, they're both, I think, really good, and they actually, and I don't even think they meant to do this. Honestly, I don't think they were working together, obviously, but they almost complement each other in the right way, that in certain parts that the Hulu doesn't the Hulu documentary doesn't really talk about, the Netflix one talks about a lot, and vice versa. So it's almost a really interesting perspective that they're almost like two puzzle pieces that go together perfectly to create this whole big picture.